Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, past, present, and future. Welcome. And here now, Corey Gomez.
Hello everyone and welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, past, present, and future. Today I am joined by a classically trained actor. You might know him from The Black Scorpion. You might know him from Right to Kill. A lot of you know him from Family Ties. I am joined by Mr. Scott Valentine today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Mr. Gomez, thank you kindly for having me. I am humbled and I'm flattered.
I have to ask, it's the question I asked to start. How did you get started in acting?
Dude, I just pulled up a picture of that chick we were talking about.
She's hot, isn't she?
Well, the guy we were talking... No, they all... each one of the women in this picture all have fake boobies. I'm not a fan of fake boobies.
Oh, that's okay. I feel real.
How did I get started in acting? I started acting originally when I was a little kid, hanging out at my parents' house, and we thought it would be fun if we hid behind the wood pile in the garage. That would be our dressing room. And we made up these plays, and I just remember using a lot of ketchup for blood. That was sort of the initial introduction. But I didn't have a real interest in acting until I went to college, and I was going to be a journalist. I was actually going to go to Guam and work for the Gannett News Organization. There was an attempted coup d'etat in Guam. And I said, well, I guess I'm not going to go there. I don't want to be killed by revolutionaries. We only need to live here and have revolutionaries.
I say you can get killed here by doing that, you know.
Exactly. But I went to college, did not apply to any colleges. I thought, well, I might as well go to college. I had a resounding, I think first semester I had a 1.7 GPA. Next semester I had a 1.32 GPA. And then I discovered acting. They were having auditions. I went to audition, got in the play, and I loved it. And I found out, you know what, Corey? The same research you could do for the play, you could use that same information to create your term paper or your thesis for various classes. So I would take that information, disseminate it into paper, and change the title and submit the same paper for 3 or 4 different classes. So I was having a great time. I started meeting a lot of young ladies, and the natural things that were happening when a young man meets a young woman. And what led next was, what could make this better? Get paid. So I decided to go to New York and go to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and fell in love with it. Really loved it. Graduated from the Academy, became a member of the Actors Studio. And my big break was I was on my way to talk with my agent. I was offered a soap opera and offered a supporting part in a feature film, a film that Frank Rodham, who directed Quadrophenia. It was a film about a military academy.
Lords of Discipline.
And, pardon me?
Lords of Discipline.
There you go, baby. Uh-huh.
A lot of sodomy went on at that military school.
The finest sodomy around, young man.
Yeah.
As I was on my way to have this discussion with my agent, who wanted me to do the soap and I wanted to do the feature film, I got into an argument with a truck driver on the corner of 8th and 42nd in Manhattan, and he ran me down with the truck, hit me from behind, ran over me with the front tire, got trapped under the back tires, pushed for 2 blocks, and I was laid up for a couple of years. So
Jesus.
That was my beginning. When I started to audition again in New York after recovering after 2 years, I went to audition for this movie that Paul Newman, Robbie Benson, and it was the character was Robbie Benson's best friend in the movie. And I went through several rounds of auditioning. It came down to me and one other guy. And in the final audition, the director and the producer was like, yeah, that was, God only knows if they were sincere or not. So many times you go to auditions and people go, oh, it was very nice, Mr. Gomez, lovely. Thank you so much for coming. And you never hear shit from them. They're so full of shit lying. But finished, and I'll say the producer and the director seemed genuinely interested. And the woman who was the casting director, who eventually became an agent, she was not a nice person then, and she continued be not a nice person in Hollywood, which seems to help you succeed quite a bit. She stood up and said, "Wait a second, did you have an accident?" And I said, we all have accidents. Everybody has accidents in their life. What do you mean? No, you're hip. Isn't there some of your hip? Yes, I'm a very hip guy. I am so hip. God, I'm hip. No, you had like a limp. You got a limp there. Oh, I fell out of the tree. I was climbing, hurt my leg a little bit. No, you were like run over by a truck. You have fake parts. He has fake parts. He can't work for us. He has fake parts. He's like a tinker toy. He's going to fall apart.
Jesus.
So I jumped up on the coffee table and started acting like I was surfing. And I'm like, look at me, I'm fine, I can ride waves. And everybody in the room sort of stared at me like, okay, you're crazy. And I thought, fuck, I got to leave New York where nobody knows about this, and I got to go out to California. So I took 2 months driving cross country. Had a gal with me who I was kind of sort of dating at the time, and found out on the trip she was an alcoholic. Only when she managed to beat the shit out of me a few nights when she blacked out.
There's nothing wrong with that in the right circumstances.
We got to LA, and I'm like, wow, okay, time for you to go. Got to LA. I was actually renting the guest house to the guest house of Jodie Foster's father's house. That got weird. I went and stayed at these apartments, which just about everybody new to town that doesn't know anybody. Maybe 40% of the people stay at this place. It was called the Oakwood Apartments. It's one of these places where you can rent everything. You can rent the furniture, the forks, the knives, the plates, the spoons. You can rent the sheets, the towels, everything. But it was such a weird environment, just a weird mindset of all these people coming to LA thinking if they wore the right shoes or had the right shirt or their hair was the right way, that they were going to be the next star. And I was like, man, I got to get out of here. This is just fucking weird. And rented a house over in West Hollywood. There was a gal at the Actors Studio, an Israeli woman. I can't remember her name now. She was a set designer. And she was leaving to do some film and said, you rent my house, huh? You rent my house? You like my house? And so my buddy, do you remember the movie Warriors?
Oh, God, yes.
Did you remember the guy, what was his name? Cochise, I think?
Yeah,
David. Yeah, the guy with all the Indian and First Nations sort of attire on. Mm-hmm. Well, that's my buddy David Harris.
Cool.
So David and I rented a house together in West Hollywood, and that was funny because it was the 80s. We did a lot of coke.
Nothing wrong with that. I did too.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
Smells great.
And it was, oh God, I wish I never did coke. Seriously.
Yeah, I can't say that.
Oh God. But it was funny. People in LA were like, you live in West Hollywood? Wow, do you feel safe there? And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? It's West Hollywood. The most tragic thing I could encounter is maybe some black guy that said he wanted to suck my dick. Come on.
Yeah.
It was fine. And then met the woman who was my ex-wife now, but met her and moved over to West LA, trendy West LA. And at that time, after being in LA for 10 months, I just auditioned. There were some weeks I was going out on 20 auditions a week, and finally got an audition for the sitcom. I was like, fuck, I don't want to do a sitcom. Come on, sitcom? Really? I'm a thespian. I'm a tragedian. I'm not a sitcom actor. It was Family Ties. And I went and did it. It was supposed to be 1 week in, out, and as the first week was getting to the end, Gary Goldberg, who was the executive producer, came up to me and he basically said, we kind of like having you around. Kind of cool. Seems to be working. Would you like to come back? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'd like to come back. You seem cool. Writers are cool. And then, then of people would know my little teeny tiny bit in Hollywood history, then became the lovable monosyllabic illiterate on Family Ties, otherwise known as Nick.
You could make really nice art out of junk.
Well, the funny thing is, Corey, I had friends in New York before I had moved to L.A. One guy, Swiss guy, Claude Pia. Another gal, Melissa Ackerman. And both both of them. We would go through the streets of New York, finding, people throw out great stuff in New York, or they did at the time, and we'd go digging through the garbage piles and find different things to turn into art. So it was somewhat, it was very relatable for me to play a guy who made art out of garbage.
What was it? And I'll tell you a funny story after I ask you this. Was it fun? Like, because Michael J. Fox, did you figure he was going to go on to become the big breakout star that he did?
Well, when I got on the show, it was the 4th year, and I think it was either Teen Wolf had just come out or Back to the Future. Let's go to the
one of he did have one of the big movies. I remember
one of them came out, and he was just on fire. I mean, let's see, Teen Wolf.
I like Teen Wolf.
Yes, we can do a plug for IMDb. 1985, and that's when I got on the show. 1985. It was released. I don't know. A release date August 23rd. And the first episode that I did of Family Ties, I think I went in like August 7th or something. So it came out and it was just fucking huge. And then Back to the Future, when did because he shot, I think, 2 movies that summer.
That would have, I think, it was Back to the Future 1985. I mean, that was
1985, brother.
So, yeah.
Who's got the faster internet here? Who's got the better processor?
I'll tell you, when I interviewed Perry King, who worked with him when he was still Michael Fox on Class of 1984, and I'm not saying, it's in the interview, I'm not saying anything. I said, what was it like? And he's like, we were friends. He's like, but one day we were having a few drinks, and I said, I hope your dad owns a box company or a warehouse, because you have no future in Hollywood, in my opinion.
Holy shit. So, if you look, Back to the Future came out July 3rd. Now, its budget per IMDb was $19 million. Opening weekend was $11.1 million. So by the time I came and did the show, I think was like August 7th, somewhere around there. And he was on fire. I mean, it was like this guy had the #1 movie in the nation, and then he had another one come out, and I truly believe that Teen Wolf benefited tremendously by the phenomenal success
I like
of Back to the Future.
Teen Wolf was better. It was less creepy. It didn't have all that incest going on in it.
Mm. Did you just say the I word?
Well, I mean, here's what always bothered me about Back to the Future. Okay, at the end of the movie, you know how Thomas Wilson, Biff, is like washing their cars and doing chores around the house? When they were teenagers, he did attempted rape on the woman. Who in their right mind goes, we need someone to do some work around the house. Let's get that rapist. I never could fathom that.
Well, it was funny. Also, the other characters from the movie, I'm looking, the guy, what was his name? Chris McDonald, the actor, Chris.
Oh, yeah, he was in that.
What's his name? Chris, just a great guy. I mean, and he's a guy, as am I, that really had that one big splash and didn't, and had other great supporting roles or other roles, but really it was that movie that propelled him tremendously. What was it that he
was Shooter McGavin.
Who was he?
Wasn't he Shooter McGavin?
Yes.
See, everybody forgets he was in Grease 2 as a T-Bird. See, that Grease 2 gets no love.
There he is, Chris McDonald. Who's just, who's a very funny guy? Speaking of funny guys that went to school with me at the academy, Jerry, God, I can't think of his name. Chris McDonald. There's Chris. He's still a handsome guy. Not a bad guy.
He also did a movie with Philip Ray where they fought white supremacists before he was Shooter McGavin.
Oh, my God. You got quite a memory, brother.
It's because I didn't have much of a life, so I watched tons of TV and still do. Like lack of friends, but I mean, your character on Family Ties, you became so sought after, and especially back then, every show was let's spin off the hot character. They tried to spin you off like 3 times, didn't they?
Yes. yeah. The first time was with Herschel Bernardi's. I don't know if your listeners will remember Herschel Bernardi, but Hesh had won an Academy Award. He was the voice of Charlie Tuna, the commercial Charlie. Let's see, Herschel.
The star-kissed under the sea thing.
Right, exactly. Herschel Bernardi. I think there he is, right there. He won an Academy Award for Peter Gunn. But Hesh also, what else was it that he did? Some comedy. Anyway, he's a great guy to work with. They spun the character off. He was playing my grandfather. We had a great time working together. We shot the pilot. It went well, tested great. They picked it up, and we're starting to do all these, the press for it, and the media for it, and photograph sessions. And Hesh dies. He dies at 3 a.m. while taking a shit. And so that was tabled. Gary came and said, "Look, we can't put anything together right now really quick. Why don't you come back to Family Ties for a year? Let's see what will happen." So we went back to Family Ties. They tried to spin it off again the next year. There was a script that was written by, I don't want to say who because it was horrible, and they're very nice people, but it just was not a well-executed script. Oddly enough, the idea, the premise was Nick living in New York in an apartment with several friends. And it was kind of, in a way, had a Friends-esque, which Friends rolled around how many years later? About 6 years later, 4 or 5 years later. There was a great core, but it was just the execution wasn't so great. And again, Gary said, "Why don't you come back to the show, yada, yada, we'll have fun, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to come back." I got 2 kids, I need the money.
Yeah.
And then the last year, we did another pilot, and it was with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who everybody will know went on to play Elaine, has gone on to do Veep, has a stellar career, who's just a phenomenal human being, extremely nice, extremely kind, rather beneficent. We did the pilot. The pilot went great, and Gary, who was the executive producer of Family Ties and owned Ubu Productions, and it was done as an Ubu show. He was not the executive producer of the pilot. Bruce Helford was, and Bruce Helford went on to do Roseanne's show and Charlie Sheen's show and Drew Carey's show and the Roseanne show again. Bruce is kind of the guy they call in when you've got the very mercurial, difficult lead, and he's like Daddy Chill, Daddy Cool. He was sort of like a beatnik. He was maybe all of 5'5" and had a bald head and a little goatee. And he was a very chill guy. I mean, I love him. He's just really, really, really good guy. We did the show. It felt good. It went well. Then Gary Ubu Productions had a deal with NBC Productions, and that deal entailed them shooting the shows at NBC Studios up in Burbank, not at Paramount Studios in Hollywood, where Gary had been doing all of his productions. Family Ties, Day by Day, there was others, Brooklyn Bridge, other stuff that he shot at Paramount. And at Paramount, there were a lot of the crew had worked with Gary over and over and knew what kind of guy he was and knew that he was good to people and knew at the end of the week, the end of the year, there'd be a little something extra in your envelope, okay? Mm-hmm. When he went up to NBC, the deal was that they had to use NBC crews. Gary agreed. When you go to work as an actor, and I can't speak for the writers on the set, I think, or the directors on the set, I don't know crew, but as actors, when you go in 6 hours after you coming in, you have to get a meal. And if you don't get a meal, the show suffers what are called meal penalties. And those meal penalties are fines levied against the production and extra pay to the actor, and they fine against the production, and they're incurred every 15 minutes. And they go up rather exponentially and get very, very expensive very quickly. Well, the first time I was on Family Ties, and they came up to me after 6 hours and said, we're going into meal penalty. Will you waive your meal penalty? I'm like, what the fuck is a meal penalty? And they explained to me what I just explained to you. Yeah, sure, of course. We're just getting it going. The juices are flowing. Let's keep going. Why would we stop?
Yeah.
And actually, that's a rule that was put in place to protect actors, because there are a lot of producers who are assholes and don't care about the talent, don't care about the crew, and only care about getting as much work out of you that they possibly can with paying you as little as they can. And it was a way to protect crew and to protect cast. So they get to the point of the production on the NBC Boo Boo production show at the NBC studios up in Burbank, and they say, mealtime. And Larry said, no, let's keep going. You guys waive your meal penalties. And it wasn't Gary's crew, and they're like, no, I'm not waiving my meal penalty. What are you, crazy? You're crazy. And Larry then went to Brad and said, look, we gotta keep going. Let's just incur the meal penalties. Let's go. And Brandon's like, no, we can't, being the corporate guy, we can't. It's going to be too expensive. So Brandon and Gary had got into a fight, which went from a verbal altercation to a physical altercation. And during that physical altercation, one said to the other, well, you can't have my show, or I don't want your show. The show they were talking about was the pilot that I did with Julia that they intended to pick up, but they didn't because of the fight that Gary and Brandon had. Now, they did air it later that summer, and it got, I believe, a 47 share, which that means 47% of the available audience watching TV at that time was watching that show. It's the highest rating that a non-ordered pilot has ever gotten in the history of television. So essentially, that was my first of many Hollywood fuckings to come down the road. Mm-hmm. There are others I won't bore you with. There was a situation where they're in Spelling, which I don't know what the fuck happened, but he got very, I went in, auditioned for his piece of shit show that I really needed the job because I had a business manager that stole about $1 million from me. And at the time had 3 children. And I went from one day going, honey, where you want to go? Barbados, Bahamas, Bermuda, you pick any place with a B. To the next day going, honey, we can't buy milk. We can't buy bread. Forget paying the light bill. We can't buy groceries. So it was a pretty fucked situation. I needed the job. It was a character they were adding to one of Spelling's shows, and they wouldn't even see me initially. And I remember calling my manager saying, look, you got to get me in there. I don't care what. The guy who's the showrunner, Gary Goldberg, was the showrunner on Family Ties. Bruce Helford was the showrunner, on Roseanne's show, on Drew Carey's show, on Charlie Sheen's show. To give you an idea of the power, or your listeners, the idea of that position. Mm-hmm. And the guy who was the showrunner was a client of the same firm that I was a client of, the same management firm. And they said, call so-and-so. I'll audition for the assistant to the assistant casting director, which was pretty demeaning considering the resume that I had at that time. But I needed a job. I needed to feed my kids. Mm-hmm. And went in for the assistant casting director, got through her, got through the casting director, got through, like the underling producers and the producers, and then there's the audition with the people from the production company, all the producers and the people from the studio. Then there's the audition with the people from the production company and the studio and the network. And then then they bring in the network bigwigs, where you initially start in the room and there's like one person, and now you're in the room and there's 32 people, and they're all looking at you as you do the scene. Some of them hoping to see God as you do it. Some, because you are the answer to their prayers. If you get the head of the network or whoever the supreme decision maker is, to go, yep, you made a good choice. Way to go, Corey. We're hiring the guy that you backed. Mm-hmm. And so you have people walking in the room that have invested a lot of their own professional credibility, their own professional equity, and saying, yeah, I think this guy's the guy. And if he's not the guy, it's like, Corey, you're a fucking idiot. Why the hell did you pick Valentine? You suck. So in that audition, I did the part, did the material, got done, left the room, went out to the elevators, and getting to the elevators, the showrunner came up to me and he said, that was great. That's fucking great. You're the guy. You got the part. Now, there were 2 other guys there auditioning, and he came up to me and told me I got the part. So I drive home happy as a pig in a vat full of corn cobs, thinking, yay, I'll be able to feed my children, mm-hmm. pay my bills. Don't want to do this piece of shit show, but I got to feed my kids. Get home, call my manager. Corey, are you? It was great. They fucking love me, blah, 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 blah. Darren followed me out to the elevator, yada, yada, yada. He wanted to suck my dick. We got it.
I gotta know what show this is.
It was Beverly Hills 90210.
Ah, overrated show.
Oh, God, it was a piece of shit. And I know those people hate me that were on it. I'm not saying they're a piece of shit, but it's just not my cup of tea. I would never watch that.
I watched it because I really liked how 40-year-olds were playing 18-year-olds. I loved when Luke Perry would raise his eyebrows and he got 75 wrinkles in his forehead.
And I don't mean that comment against any of the creative, the technical people or anybody. It's just that Aaron Spelling took a big old dump on my head. Because after 2-3 days, I'm calling my manager, going, what the fuck? What's going on? And he finally, by the third day, we got an answer. He goes, look, they're going another way. You're not the guy. I said, what the fuck? What do you mean? You're a guy. The showrunner followed me out to the hall, and the elevator said, you're the guy. You're the one. Thank you for coming. You got the part. Find out. So he calls back, and he's like, look, I can't find it. It's Aaron's choice. Aaron's doing it. I said, well, call Aaron. Find out what the fuck. Why doesn't he like Valentine? And finally, my manager got through to him, and I'm trying to quote verbatim, Aaron Spelling said to him, Scott Valentine will never work for me. And if you continue this line of questioning, none of your clients will ever work for a Spelling show.
What the fuck?
I met the guy twice. I have no idea. None.
What?
I had met his daughter. His daughter eventually lived in a building that I had lived in, when she was married with the kids with her husband, who was a very cool dude. The guy who's the motorcycle rider. What's his name?
Is it her current husband?
Yeah.
Dean McDermott or something like that?
Something like that, whatever
My wife
it is.
is actually a huge fan of Tori Spelling.
I don't know anything about her personally. I don't know any of her trials and travails. Only what I saw in the press, and that's the press. It's kind of a shame that her mother decided to take a big dump on her and go, fuck you, you don't get any of daddy's money.
Yeah, that makes no sense. What can an 80-year-old woman need with billions of dollars? Give me a break.
Who the fuck knows? What a fuck. And she had no talent. She didn't do jack shit but spread her legs and let Aaron plow her with his teeny white penis.
I gotta ask, what part was it you were up for?
I have no idea, dude. I can't remember. When you get to that point and you're literally, like I said on Family Ties, just coming from New York and working at Actors Studio, being in classes with Elia Kazan and Al Pacino and thinking, this is so fucking beneath me. You're just going, I just need to become bankable. That's all I wanted to go to LA for, was to become bankable so I could be hired. Look at Corey, I was told I would never walk. I died when I got run over by that truck. They brought me back to life in the hospital. I was paralyzed from the waist down. I was told I would never walk, never have children. I've got 4 of the greatest sons a man could ever be gifted. And when you and I meet, I'll walk into the room. I won't roll into the room. Okay? So I'm not one that takes no easily. I don't give up. But I did not want to go to L.A. My dream at that time in my life was I was going to do plays 10 months out of the 12, and I would do a movie a year just to make enough money, because even when you did plays on Broadway in New York as a working actor, by the time you got done paying your taxes and your commission to your agent, commission to your manager, your legal fees, and your publicist money, you still were living in an apartment that was inhabited with about 1,000 cockroaches. So it was not the life of beauty and luxury that people out in normal land perceive and the bullshit that is fed to them through People Magazine and Us and Entertainment Tonight or whatever other, entertainment publishing. But, I made my own choices. I chose to stay on that sitcom. Nobody held a gun to my head. I chose to buy the big-ass house that I did instead of, you look at somebody like Viggo Mortensen, which is extremely honorable, and how he has maintained his lifestyle and maintained one of not getting out over his skis and spending too much money. So there are quite a few lessons that I wish that I had been taught earlier as a young man. But it is what it is now, right? I got a great gal, I got 4 great sons, and I'm loving life.
No. When My Demon Lover, which is, a cult hit, Warner Brothers Archives has just released it, did you audition for that, or was that offered to you because, you were so hot on Family Ties at the time?
It was offered to me because I was so hot. And I tell you, the guy who was my agent came to me and he said, Doll, they're offering you this movie, they're going to pay you blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, it's kind of fun, the script. Why don't you read it, see if you like it? Now, I love Mikey. Mikey was my agent. Mikey stuck by me after I got run over by the truck and supported me as one would only support their brother or their sister or their child. I never should have done My Demon Lover. It was the wrong film. To get on a sitcom for a year and then to the community, the perception is, oh, you think you're such a big shot that you can support a feature film and make it win. Or you think you're Michael Fox and you can do what happened to Teen Wolf or what happened to Back to the Future. What I should have done, if I wanted to take a part as a strategic business move as an actor, is I should have taken a movie where somebody like Al Pacino or Dustin Hoffman or Robert De Niro were the lead, and I had maybe one or two scenes. And if the film failed, it would be, well, it didn't work, it was the writer, it was the actor, it was the marketing campaign or whatever. It wasn't. When My Demon Lover came out and it failed, it did fail at the time. It was, well, Valentine. The reason it failed was Valentine. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to why it worked, why it didn't work. Was it the script? Was it the marketing campaign? Was it when they released it? Was the title? I don't know. But I came from New York at the time, and in New York, you went from doing play to play to play to play. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. But if they didn't work, it wasn't, well, Valentine's in it, so that's why it didn't work. Never hire him again. I didn't know that. When I got sent the script, and it's like one scene I'm playing a fat Buddha man, the next scene I'm playing an old Jewish woman, the next scene I'm playing a tiger, the next scene I'm playing this, libidinous, horny motherfucker. I thought, well, it's fun. What the fuck? And I get to put on makeup and, hell, it's my summer break. I'll do it. Why not?
It's a cult classic now.
You know what cult classic means?
Well,
there's a small audience that are loyal followers.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I love it. But I just, really, Corey, I mean, I don't, not that I regret it, but I wish I had somebody at the time say to me, hey, let's step back and look at this and let's think about it differently. Now, I did have a manager at the time when I got on Family Ties, a guy that managed big-ass clients like John Travolta, like Katherine Hellman, like Barry Bostwick, that had clients that had become big boffo box office, people, or big boffo television people. But that guy, that motherfucker, had the audacity to die from AIDS the first year I was on Family Ties. So when I die and I go to the life thereafter and I find Bob Lamont, I'm going to say, you motherfucker, why did you suck that dick that got you AIDS and die, huh? And Bob was a great guy. He was just a great guy, but he had enough age and enough wisdom where he probably would have said to me, my guess, totally my guess. And there's that bullshit expression, hindsight's 20/20. No, it isn't. Hindsight is you look back and you see, well, I could have gone left, or I could have gone right, or I could have gone up. It doesn't mean that you had a perfect, hindsight, you can make another decision, and that could have been the wrong decision in the time and the place. The thing is, we make our decisions, we go down our paths, and we have to live with the choices we've made. It was a lot of fun. The guy who was the director, Charlie Leventhal, he and I went on to be business partners. We produced the film Deuces Wild together, and there was another big lesson. And the guy who was the director, Scotty Calvert, great guy, sweetheart of a guy, committed suicide a few years ago, which is such a shame. He was such a kind, gracious, loving person. Stephen Dorff, sweetheart of a guy, really just fucking great guy. I still, when I see him to this day, he's just a sweetheart of a guy.
Johnny
Norman
Knoxville
Reedus
was a greaser. Come on, you can't go wrong here.
Hello, Johnny Knoxville. Look at Norman Reedus. Who else? I mean, we had a great fucking cast.
You had the girl that I had the hugest crush on to this day, and I'm going to mispronounce her name.
Fairuza Balk.
Now I know how to say it. Fairuza Balk. Hottest freaking girl in movies at the time.
Well,
my opinion. My hindsight's
when you and I stop taping, and it's nothing bad, but it's something I don't want to say. I don't want to say out over in public. But there was a certain idiosyncratic thing that she demanded at the time that was like, well, Okay, she's the lead. If she wants it, go right ahead. Fine.
I mean, but and you worked steady. You had countless TV appearances, countless films.
Yeah, dude. I had a lot. Look, I did a bunch of Murder She Wrote. But Angela Lansbury, she's a stalwart. She is a legend. And I did, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes of her show. And to work with somebody of that. Pardon me?
You did Silk Stockings with Rob Estes, for God's sakes.
And Rob's a great guy.
Yeah,
he's a fucking sweetheart. Look at this. I'm back on the cast of Deuces Wild. Brad Renfro, who killed Manu, God bless him.
Yeah.
Vince Pastore, from The Sopranos. Yep. Frankie Muniz, Balthazar Getty, Matt Dillon, Deborah Harry. Hello, Blondie.
Oh,
James Franco.
I really liked her in Videodrome.
James Franco.
Yeah. I
did a cartoon. You're a cartoon lover. I did a cartoon with Deborah Harry for about 2 years. Phantom 2040.
Phantom 2040, yeah.
There's a deer in your backyard, and the dogs are out to protect you from it.
There's a pizza delivery man bringing my wife and son a pizza, and they're freaking out. I have one kid.
It sounds like you have one dog that's like a little furry, kind of booba-dooba-doo, and another one that's like fucking huge.
I do.
Bite your leg off.
I have a big lab that's barking, a little corgi that's barking, and then I have a coonhound that he doesn't bark. He's just sitting there.
He probably looks at those two and like, shut up, okay?
That's what he does.
Just the pizza.
He's my dog.
If you're nice, we're going to get some of it, okay? Just shut up.
Yes, he's the smartest of the bunch.
God, how funny. How funny.
But now I've got to say, in 2001, you did one of the greatest shows in television history. You did The Black Scorpion.
Oh, dude. Okay. Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm a lifelong comic collector. I love the 1966 Batman show. This is 1966 Batman with tits and bondage. It was the greatest thing ever. And Sci-Fi Channel, Sci-Fi Channel cancels everything after a season or two. That show should have had a 5, 6, 7 year run. Villain of the week, a beautiful girl, most asinine plots. How much that had to have been so much fun to
do. Dude, it rocked. It rocked. It was so much fun. That show, with everything, with the sort of comic book violent movies that have come out since, and then the comic book movies, I think in a way it was a little too early for its time, perhaps.
Yeah.
But first, Craig Nevius, the guy who created it, okay, and it says Roger Corman, great guy. He was real, just a gotta be careful, can't use that word. He liked the young ladies quite a bit, so
that's okay.
It was his sort of his candy store to hire all these chicks who had either been soft porn actresses as guest stars, or they were lingerie models, or there was a lot of tits and ass in that regard, and it was very much, as you said, it was very sort of hokey that way. But then the gal who played the Scorpion, Michelle Lintel, was just a sweetheart. But it was very funny because she was very, very pretty, very cute, and had just this string of guys, from guys that were old to young, where they were just so gaga over her. And I was, at the time, we shot that beginning, I think, like 98. Yes, it was 98, 97. My fourth son was born in 98. So I was like Mr. Married Man. I had, I had a golden rule that started for me in college when I did plays in college. And I made the mistake once of having sex with one of the gals that was in the cast. And that was just a disaster. And I made a rule from there on, which I'm very proud of myself. Don't ever fuck anybody that you're working with.
Yeah,
never, 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 never.
Well, I don't know. She was pretty beautiful, though.
Well, it was just, it makes it a lot more fun, when there's hot chicks. Look, I did that movie Carnosaur 3, Janet Gunn, who was the female lead.
Roger Corman as well, I believe.
Everybody thought Janet and I were fucking. My demon lover, Michelle Little, everybody thought we were fucking. Never. Never, 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 never. And it was just, chicks dig it so much more when you're friendly and fun and don't try to get in their pants.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're married. It's kind of a cool thing. But going back, if you look at the cast, on that. Steven, hold on 1 second. We got to pull this up.
Steven Kravitz?
Because, yes.
He was great.
Poor dear, love Steven Kravitz.
And the villain of the week was you had a lot of the Batman people. Adam West was the breather. You had Frank Gorsh and Soupy Sales. But the first episode had Martin Cove, for God's sakes.
Marty Cove, Mr. What is it? Cobra Kai?
Cobra Kai, he's Kreese. He's on fire right now.
He's on fuego, and Marty's just a sweetheart of a guy. Shane Powers, who went on to, he was on Survivor, sweetheart of a guy. Guy Boyd, who film buffs will remember him from other roles that he did. Big ass, the guy who played the mayor, Robert Pine, is Chris Pine's dad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Chris Pine used to come around on the set and just goof around as a kid on the set. It was so funny.
You can't forget Stoney Jackson.
Love Stoney Jackson. Love him. If I was gay, I would be hitting on that motherfucker. I hope he hears this because it will totally freak him out. Soupy Sales. Soupy was so drunk when he shot. He's dead now, isn't he, Soupy?
I think so. Or
I think
odds are not in his favor that he would still be alive at that age.
Dude, he was in I don't know, 2-3 scenes, and it took so long to shoot the scenes because he was so drunk. And they made these huge cue cards so he could read his lines off of it. And I was off producing my Deuces Wild, Nancy Valen. You remember Nancy Valen, who was on Baywatch?
Yeah.
Just a sweetheart of a gal. Who else? Lou Ferrigno. He was one of the bad guys.
I like Lou Ferrigno. I'd love to talk to Lou one day.
Just a great guy. Charles Fleischer. Do you remember Charles Fleischer, the comedian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Robert Haggis. Robert from Welcome Back, Kotter.
See,
all right.
All really, really, really great actors popped up on this show for that year it was on.
Well, it was one of the things, the guy Craig, who was the executive producer, is the kind of guy that would pick up the phone and call these people and say, hey, we're doing the show. It's a little, I know, and it's kind of campy and all that, but we have a great time. And, we got paid compared to what normal at that time network shows and sort of better cable shows, the pay rates they were getting, we were getting paid shit, okay? And it was really just, once again, me taking a job because I wanted to make sure that I had money to feed my kids as I was working, and I could produce Deuces Wild. And it was one of the best experiences I ever had in Hollywood because it was just, everybody knew it. And it was like, don't bitch about the fucking money. You have a job, and we're here to support and love and help each other. It was just, there was a lot of camaraderie, a lot of just really good stuff.
I love the fact that the character Argyle, it was Garrett Morris in the film, but it was played by a guy who just went by BT in the show. This guy, for those of you who haven't seen it, owns this shitty mom and pop garage with the same one fucking car park there, has probably a rat hole apartment above the garage, yet he's created this molecular destabilizer that can turn cars and clothes and other things. Yet he's not working for the government or at MIT or anything like that. He fixes the same car every week. And BT was a sweetheart of a guy, just a sweetheart. Julie McCullough, who was a Playboy playmate, and she was in actually a movie of the week that I did with Melissa Gilbert. So in a way, you see, as you get older, it was great, it was wonderful, because as you walked onto the set, you knew this guy from that show and that girl from this show, and it was lovely. It was a lot of camaraderie. It was almost like doing summer stock theater. It was a lot of fun. They ought to try to redo it now. I bet there's an audience for it now that would actually, unfortunately it was sci-fi instead of a normal. If it was normal syndicated at the time, I think it could have probably went 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Corey, did you ever watch Phantom 2040?
Of course. I used to collect the original Golden Key Phantom comic books.
Dude, look at the cast on that. Look, Ron Perlman, Leah Remini, Margot Kidder, Pamela Alden, who was Pam Segal at the time, Mark Hamill, Carrie Snodgrass, Rob Paulson, Paul Williams, once again, Deborah Harry, otherwise known as Blondie. And these are people that I got. We did that show.
Richard Lynch did episodes of that show.
Yes, Richard Lynch, and we went in every week. So I think we did an episode over like 2 days. And you'd stroll into a recording studio. You could go in your pajamas and your fuzzy slippers. And it was, again, just great, a great camaraderie, just a lot of love. It was funny. One episode, it was very rare that you had the full cast in the recording studio recording at the same time, but it made it much better when you were just reading lines, by yourself, trying to imagine what the other person would do. Carla DeVito, Danny DeVito's sister, Carla. She's a fucking sweetheart, man. One episode, you know who Margot Kidder is, right?
Of course.
Superman?
Supergirl.
Yeah. You know Pam Alden. Mm-hmm. Do you know Pam Segal?
Uh-huh.
Right? Okay. Leah Remini, Leah with all the Scientology. Maka.
Yeah, I used to have a crush on her too. She's gorgeous.
She's a sweetheart. Just I love her. Love her. And if somebody fucked with you, Leah had your back, man. She had your back. She did. She was a fucking a mama cat, Don't you fuck with. She just was a very honorable, very good person. And then Carrie Snodgrass. Do you remember Carrie Snodgrass? Yep. Splendor in the Grass. Okay. So one episode, Carrie, Leah, Pam, and Margot all got into an argument over who could get their man off better.
That had to be Leah.
No, the four of them got into an argument in the recording studio, and then they all got down on the floor showing what their special technique was to create, create that extra dabba-doo while fornicating. And there were some people in the cast that were actually kind of religious folks.
Was Ron Perlman there that day?
Yes, he was, and he's a sweetheart of a guy. He's a great guy. Ron's a no bullshit guy, and just a sweetheart. He's good human, good man, good man. Look, I've been very lucky, dude. Look at the people that I've got.
You've worked with amazing people, left and right.
Yeah, very lucky. And look, now I'm working with Mr. Gomez. All right. Hello.
It's gone downhill for you.
Dude, we got to get you down from Nebraska and get you down to L.A. Bring your wife and your son, okay?
We'll start the Black Scorpion. We'll do Black Scorpion.
They'll do a revival of Black Scorpion, exactly. Get you out there.
I could write it. I know I can.
You know what? I've got to hook you up with Craig Nevius, the guy who created the show.
I love the show because I bought it when it came out on DVD. It had a really small print run, and I bought it. And I showed it to my son. Of course, he thought it was cool. And about a week ago, my wife, she had seen the movie. I think it was Joan Severance in the film. And I said, well, I'm going to interview Scott Valentine. I said, I got to rewatch these shows. I wanted a reason to watch them again. And she loved it. She thought it was she had fun with it. It's just such a fun, campy show.
I never watched any of the movies that Joan did as a character. I worked with Joan. Joan and I did a classic, I think, called Right to Kill.
Yeah, with a W. It was the same thing, again, just a different girl in the costume.
Yeah, but Joan, again, she's just a sweetheart. She was a sweetheart. And the year prior, I was at the VSDA convention back in the 90s, and she and I was the host. She was presenting some award. I met her backstage, and I was like, wow.
I'm not gonna lie. I've been trying to hook up. Well, not hook up. That's a really bad way to say it. I've been trying to interview Michelle Linnell. I sent her my normal letter. Her info on IMDb looks really fugazi. So I sent her a letter on Facebook and everything. So.
Who now? Michelle Linnell?
Yeah, it's I'd really like to talk to you about the costume you wore in the Black Scorpion with the headset. It's I have many great questions about that.
You know what? I talk to her once in a while, not as frequently, obviously, as when we were doing the show. She just had a baby. Little boy, Charlie. Cute as all get out. I'll mention it to her. I did this great show. You got to let this guy interview you. I haven't. She may be so fed up on it because she moved back home. You know, where after a while you kind of want a little bit of real cooking and real folks, and you get a little fed up with LA.
You know why I like that show so much? For the obvious reasons, but one of the other reasons is just a fan watching it. I could tell that every member of the cast liked each other. They were having fun with what they were doing. You guys weren't taking it overly seriously. It was just so organic to watch it. You could just see that you guys were having a good time doing it, and that translates to me into a really good show, especially something campy like that.
It was just, it was. Hey, brother, I don't mean to be rude, but I gotta take my future bride, who I love dearly. I'm very lucky to have met her and be in her life. I'm one of the luckiest mommy effers on the face of the earth.
We'll have to do a part 2.
Okay, I'd love it. Corey, you're a good guy, man. You are.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You really, no, you're a good guy, and you know, as an actor, you do a lot of these interviews, and there are people that stand out. You stand out. You're good, man. Let's do it again. Let's do another one. All right?
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. You have been listening to the Chronicles of Hollywood History. Thank you from Gomez Richmond Productions.